va a llegar el gol del Arsenal. Ozil, marca Mesut Ozil.
Pasó con todo Bellerín, Christensen al piso, le llegó a Pepe que busca ángulo de disparo, lo vio Aubameyang, cuidado con él y puede ser un golazo. ¡Gol! ¡Golazo del Arsenal! ¡Golazo de gol, Aubameyang!
This is Arsecast Extra.
Hello and welcome to an FA Cup final winning Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Gunnerblog. James.
Goodly morning, goodly morning. Goodly morning, goodly morning, goodly morning. Goodly morning, goodly morning, goodly morning. Goodly morning.
Wow. Alarm clocks around the globe will be changed, surely, to that from now on.
Sure. You know what I was thinking? I was thinking like London Calling would work very well with Goodly Morning, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Goodly morning, except I was just a bit too hungover yesterday and to do anything with that, which is maybe for the best. I don't want to butcher a great song like that, but there you go.
Look, it's good to save something for number 15, isn't it?
That is true. That is true. I love your optimistic outlook on this, given the fact that the FA Cup is essentially our trophy. We just lend it to other clubs from time to time and just take it back whenever we want.
It absolutely. I mean, and now it's ours. When you win it 14 times, you have permission to smash it up, it seems.
Yeah.
Dismantle it, break it into tiny little pieces and share it among the team.
Everyone can have a little morsel, a little nugget of FA Cup to chew on as they get the bus home to wherever party they went to. How are you feeling on Monday morning? I have to say, I was very... overcome, perhaps is not quite the right word, but almost overcome with happiness and excitement on Saturday evening, because it was a tense affair. It was a tense afternoon. We won the cup. We all knew the implications. Saturday evening, I was absolutely buzzing, and not just for myself, but for everyone at the club, for the players, for the manager, for the coaching staff, for the fans all over the world who have been through the absolute ringer this season. And no doubt we'll talk about all that. I was sort of hyperventilating with happiness, I think is the term I used on the Instant Reaction podcast I did with Elliot. And that was me at home watching on TV, trying to take it all in and soak it all in. You were there. What was it like trying to balance your joy as an Arsenal fan, seeing us win the cup, with the work that you had to do and the sort of, I guess, the veneer of professionalism you had to put on?
Thank you very much for that. It is only a veneer, after all.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, I was lucky in that I happened to be sat around a few guys, some from the Arsenal staff, who were there for the online team and things like that, and a couple of journalists I know who, let's say, hold Arsenal quite dear in their heart. So there was an element of feeling a bit like I was sort of among friends, and because everyone was more socially distanced as well, there was kind of a fair distance between every journalist, about 4 meters or so. It wasn't like I had Henry Winter sat next to me, sort of checking that I was being a good boy. I was able to sort of do a bit of jumping up and fist pumping. And actually, when Arsenal won the trophy, I sort of made sure I sort of got down quite near the front for the presentation. And I was like, given that there are no fans here, anyone who is here that is a fan should at least sort of embrace that to an extent. Do you know what I mean? It seemed ludicrous to kind of maintain that professionalism once a certain point.
Well, of course. Look, I think if Ian Wright can coach Rob Holding through the game from his position in the commentary, the BBC gantry, I think it's perfectly reasonable for Arsenal supporting journalists to enjoy the moment while they were there.
Yeah, I think they're less likely to kick Ian Wright out than they might be me, but you're absolutely right. And in fact, my favourite aspect of being there was leaving because, as you might expect, a load of Arsenal fans had kind of accumulated outside Wembley, and all the journalists were in the same car park as the Arsenal staff, and where sort of players were emerging from. So I got to drive out of the car park in my little Vauxhall Corsa with the Arsenal fans lining the streets, sort of peering in, thinking, is this one of the really poor players? And I got to sort of beat my horn, and they cheered, and it was like a nice sort of communal moment. I got to feel a bit like what it's like for a footballer to feel like in that moment. So look, it was great, and I was very, very, very lucky to be there, and I'm sure that a lot of people are really jealous. I would say if you watched it at home with a mate or with someone you care about or someone else who's like an Arsenal fan, and you were able to celebrate it also like absolutely wholeheartedly, knowing everything that it meant, I'm jealous of you too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
sure.
It's there's positives and negatives to it.
Yeah, it was weird. We asked Ian, didn't we, on the pre-game Arsecast Extra, if the fact that fans weren't going to be there would diminish the occasion in some way, and he insisted that wouldn't be the case. And there were some interesting shots during the game. There was one from behind Mikel Arteta where he's sort of directing play, the orchestra guy, what do you call him, the conductor, and he's waving his arms and he's moving his players here and there. And all you can see are these banks of empty seats in the background, and it was quite striking, quite stark. But once the game was won, and once the players were celebrating on the pitch, and once the people who were sad were being sad in plain sight, which I also enjoyed, it didn't feel to me like a diminished occasion. It was a shame, obviously, because, for fans to be there, to share that experience is an amazing thing. For the players to connect with the fans in that way, it would have been amazing, but I don't feel like it was really missing something fundamental in the way that it might have done if the result had been the other way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is where sort of digital media and social media shows what a positive force it can be. That Arsenal players were kind of connected to fans in those moments, and there were lovely things like, players whose family weren't there out on the pitch at the end, kind of FaceTiming them, talking to them. Fortunately, technology kind of enabled us to bridge some of those gaps. But yeah, look, it would have been great to have the party that the players absolutely deserved with the fans. I mean, to be honest, it looks like quite a lot of fans did have a party down at the stadium anyway, from the images that I've seen on social media. But yeah, it was great to see them have that release, because this has been such I think for supporters too, actually, a crazy, crazy season. And then this last part of it, so intense and condensed with so much going on, and to be rewarded for all that hard work, I was really delighted. Yeah,
I mean, I think you're right. Intense is a really good word, because there were games every 3 or 4 days. We were lurching from, this is good, or maybe we'll make Europe, or we won't make Europe. God, now all of our European eggs are in this FA Cup final basket. But I think it's a reminder as well that when something like this happens, when you win a trophy, when you have some success, that there's a sort of a collective shared experience between Arsenal fans, and to see everybody so happy. Like, it's a part and parcel of life that even though we're all Arsenal fans, there are differences. There are differences of opinion, and most people can express those in a fairly mannerly way. There are people who don't do that, but I don't want to get hung up on that. I just mean that when something good happens, the way it brings everybody together is a reminder of what's so beautiful about football, and what's, for me anyway, it's special about Arsenal. I know that's probably true if you support another club that wins things, but I don't have that experience. I only have it with Arsenal, and for me it's a special club, and to share it, whether it was online, on Twitter chats, on Discord, with our Patreon members, WhatsApp groups, all of the ways that we connect as fans these days, for everybody to be so happy. I was just delighted, in general. I think we have been through a lot this season, and there are discussions to be had and things to learn from and everything else. But in the moment, just to enjoy something in its purest form is just wonderful.
It is, and I know that we sort of suffered for it at times this season, but I also think on the other side of the coin, we have to be grateful, and we have to acknowledge that as Arsenal fans, we've won a lot of shit. Even in these kind of really difficult, end of Wenger years and trying to recover from that, we keep winning stuff, and they're really the big days that you remember and what it's all about. So, we got to be thankful for that too. And even in an absolute shit show of a season, really, our worst season in terms of league form for 25 years, maybe more, since the 70s. I mean,
we still won a cup.
We still won a cup. That's amazing. And it was. It was great, but it also felt slightly surreal. I kind of couldn't believe that the roller coaster that we had been on ended, in this kind of serene fashion.
I think I did say this to you before, that it would be like the most apt way for this crazy season to end, after everything we've been through, to somehow come out of it on a massive high with a trophy. It just could not be any more surreal than that. Like, that's not in the script when you look at what's happened to Arsenal this season, and to be fair, without wanting to blow my own trumpet, I think I did predict the exact same result, the exact result of the game on Friday.
Very good.
2-1 defeat, 2-2. The next in the sequence, it had to be a 2-1 for Arsenal. Why was anyone worried?
I fear for the scriptwriters at Arsenal, when they have to try and top this season next year. I think, end the show now. I don't really know where they go from here. We've really jumped the shark, to be honest, in terms of twists and turns. But 2-1, we won it. We came from behind as well.
Yeah.
That is, I think it's been a bit glossed over. We were losing in the final and we turned it round. Which
isn't something we've done a lot of this season, is it? We've thrown away leads more than we've hauled them back, I think.
Yeah. And we'll get onto the game proper, but I have to say, when the first goal went in as early as it did, I was feeling very, very bad.
I thought of you when that goal went in. Actually, it was a weird thing. Yeah, I was
because I banged on about how important the first goal was. How wrong I was about that.
Kinda, but I was sort of thinking, I was wondering what the experience of it was like there, as opposed to watching at home. And I was obviously doing the live blog for the site, and I was thinking, well, we're both kind of sitting there with our laptops. I wonder, is it easier to deal with if you're there in the stadium? But look, let's go on to the game. Let's talk about the game. We can talk about the ramifications, the implications, and everything else, and some of the other stuff after. The team lineups, any surprises at all? You were right to think that Maitland-Niles was going to start, which he did. And from a Chelsea point of view, there wasn't really anything surprising there beyond maybe Mount and Pulisic starting. The thing I suppose that we can take from the Chelsea lineup is welcome Willian to Arsenal.
He was telling people on the day he was injured, but he wasn't exactly on crutches. I do think that's definitely one to keep an eye on. I don't get a lot right, but I did get the team right. It was the semi-final team, basically, wasn't it? With Mustafi out and Rob Holding in. Chelsea lined up with a back three, pretty much as expected. To be honest, that first, 15 minutes, we'll get onto the goal, but Chelsea were giving us a lot of problems. And Arteta was doing some of his most ferocious pointing in those early periods of the game. And I have to say,
go on.
Sorry, in the stadium, the problem appeared to be that Pulisic and Mount were, although ostensibly the wide men, not really playing wide at all, particularly Mount. Mount was just, although he was, theoretically the right-sided player, dropping into the space between our back three and Xhaka and Ceballos. And before their goal, I don't know if you remember, he had a shot from range where he received the ball in that space.
Yeah, he should have played Giroud in it, I think.
He should have played Giroud in, and he had the shot. It was, a fairly comfortable save for Martinez, but he was in that space, and it was giving us loads of issues. And Arteta's solution to it, which worked relatively well, actually, was he basically told Tierney, wherever Mount goes, you've got to go with him.
Yeah, I noticed that because there was a bit in the first half where Tierney was over in where you might imagine the right-hand centre half to be, and he had followed Mount all the way over there. Yeah, I thought Chelsea started very brightly. It was a kind of worrying start. There was that moment when Xhaka got robbed in midfield, something we haven't seen for quite some time. So it stood out, actually. But the pressure they put on in midfield, I just felt we were just a bit too passive in there. It was too easy for Chelsea to pass between the lines and to turn and drive at the back three, at the defenders. And I was worried, and I wasn't even slightly surprised that the goal went in, to be perfectly honest. I felt like it was kind of coming in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we had another issue, which was obvious in the stadium. I don't know if it was obvious in telly, which is that Lacazette was kind of caught between two stools, because what he has been doing recently is that thing where he's sort of the deepest of the front three, and he would have been on Jorginho, the whole game if it was Man City. But Man City and Liverpool, who played like that against both played with a back four, not a back three. Yeah. And when Chelsea had the three centre halves, Lacazette it was kind of incumbent on him to close down, Zuma or whoever was at the heart of the back three, as well as tracking Jorginho. And it just meant, like you say, Jorginho was able to get on the ball and play it between Xhaka and Ceballos, and their goal, in fairness, once they get into that final third, it's good play. I mean, Giroud, it's a lovely flick and a very good take, isn't it, from Pulisic?
It is. It's good feet, and I think Tierney had a decision to make.
Yeah, he did.
In which he could have fouled the man and given away a penalty and potentially seen himself sent off. So it was a split-second decision. I think he had to just kind of allow the guy and hope that Emi Martinez might make the save. But it's a good finish, a good goal from Pulisic. But, in classic football terms, they scored too early. We
had a chance before that, didn't we? I mean,
Aubameyang,
the header. And that was a bit of a forerunner for where our threat would come in the game, in that it was Maitland-Niles going down that left-hand channel, and both he and Aubameyang sort of, were a constant menace, I think, in terms of exploiting that space.
Yeah.
Even if Maitland-Niles' delivery from the left-hand side maybe isn't what you would ideally hope for.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but it was very good in that case.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he generally has to cut back, but I think we saw, the benefit of Maitland-Niles in terms of what he can bring to the team. He's really, really quick. There were a couple of times where he just absolutely raced away from probably Azpilicueta or Reece James down that side. So
Reece James is not slow at all. I mean, and Maitland-Niles had him on toast, I thought.
Yeah, so look, we get to the drinks break, and it's clear that Mikel Arteta had a word about what he wanted his team to do in terms of exploiting that space and looking for Aubameyang over the top, which is where the penalty came from. Tierney with the ball, Aubameyang going straight through. What did you make of the decision to only issue a yellow card? I thought it was pretty borderline, to be honest.
I mean, the grounds was Rudiger covering, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard to know with those ones. It's very difficult to sort of play it forward in your mind and see if Rudiger would intercept Aubameyang or not. I mean, knowing how quick Aubameyang is, I do have my doubts about that.
Yeah.
It was a bit like the Man City goal, wasn't it? In that it was Tierney's ball down the line and he just raced onto it. I thought Aubameyang did well to win the penalty, to be honest with you. And if you'd offered me a penalty or a free kick outside the box and a sending off, at that point of the game, I actually would have taken a penalty, because I think Arsenal needed something to get a foothold in the match. And he, because the foul starts, about 22 yards out, something like that, starts tugging him. And Aubameyang sees the white line, he gets into the box.
Keeps going, yeah.
And then he goes down. I mean, is it a red card? Maybe, maybe not. I think on the balance, though, the referee probably did us more favours than us. So I'll live with it.
Yeah, good penalty too. Good penalty.
Really good penalty. Yeah. I mean, I heard you chat about this on the Arsenal Vision podcast about if no crowds are a factor in that. I don't know, but it was a bloody good penalty regardless.
Yeah, I don't really think that's the case. I think he picked his spot, he went for it, and there's one of the angles actually where if you pause the ball just before he kicks it, there's no doubt as to where he's going to put it. And Caballero kind of gambles early and goes completely the wrong way.
Caballero's watching it go past him, which is quite a nice shot. I mean, I think that's the end he missed against Spurs.
Is it?
Yeah. So I did have my heart in my mouth slightly for him, but he looked very, very, very focused, and it was a great penalty. And that was Arsenal sort of back in the game. And suddenly my hope was restored. Genuinely, at 1-0 down, I thought, I can't see it. This is not going to be pretty. But in credit to Arteta, the drinks break really helped turn things around for us, I think. It
did, and I think we played well in the rest of that first half. We were unquestionably on top in terms of the pressure. We had a load of pressure, a rake of corners just before half-time as well, and there was a free kick, I think, from Lacazette, which went wide, but it was from a good position, and it was a reward for the way we played the game within their half.
Yeah, there was in that run of corners, there was a Pepe cross from the right. That cross he does where he cuts back, which Maitland-Niles almost got on. That was quite a good chance, and we mixed it up. It wasn't all short passing from Arsenal. We went long into that channel, particularly on the left hand side, and it kept working. I mean. Yeah. I think Michael Cox wrote a piece today about how Chelsea just didn't live with it, and they didn't really find a way to counter it. And in Tierney and Louise, we had 2 outballs on that side, and we really, really exploited them. So it was smart from Arsenal.
I'll have to have a read of that. I mean, we should mention the disallowed goal as well, I suppose, because that was a beautiful piece of football, and Maitland-Niles' arse was offside.
It's so gutting, isn't it? Especially for Pepe, who I thought had his best game for Arsenal. Actually, I'll say.
I've got a question about that. So let's save that for part 2. But I tend to agree with you.
And I know you can read too much into this, but I was watching the warm up, and he was banging shots into that top corner. I mean, time and time again. Sometimes. It can mean nothing, but sometimes you watch a player and there's just a sharpness about everything they're doing on the day. And I saw that in him pre-game, and I saw it in the way he executed that shot. I wish it had counted for him, but the good news is we're getting him into the positions where he might be able to do things like that more and more often.
Yes. Second half was a little more even. There was some toing and froing, I guess. I remember a couple of balls through from Chelsea, which almost found their target, almost, and we had a couple of half chances as well. But let's talk about the second goal and the winning goal.
Before we do,
go on.
Can I just say a couple of things that I think did go in our favour? And like I say, Arsenal, I think, were the better team, but they also had the breaks. Either side of half-time, they get 2 hamstring injuries. Some sort of sniper on the top of Wembley Stadium takes out Azpilicueta and then Pulisic, which was the Pulisic one was quite extraordinary. I don't think I've ever seen a player try and take the shot on with their torn hamstring. I mean, I don't know if that will have helped him massively, but him coming off, particularly as Azpilicueta wasn't having a great game as it was, I think was another little boost in our favour.
It certainly was. We had a question here from Beardy McBeardface at Bearded Hannon, who said, I celebrated Pulisic's injury like a goal. Am I a terrible human being? And I don't think you are. I genuinely don't think you are. I think in a game like this where the stakes are so high, it's not like you want someone to get injured much.
And it's not like he's suffered a terrible leg break.
It's a hamstring.
He's a sprint athlete. He's suffered a hamstring. Yeah. That's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible for him, but that's good for us. That's good for us. I didn't celebrate like a goal, but I wasn't unhappy. I didn't really feel sorry for him. And I know that some of our American listeners, given his status there, might not agree with this. But, when you need to win a cup final, you take every little thing that goes your way. And he's far from the worst, character at Chelsea or anything like it. But, that's just the way it goes. That's sport. It's happened to us plenty of times, and there have been plenty of opposition fans who've taken great joy and relish in some of our players getting injured at key moments. I think you're right. It did help us because he is a really good player. He's really good.
I was the most relieved man at Wembley, let me tell you, because I had spent the day calling out Pulisic on his terrible TikTok dancing and saying this man cannot be allowed to lift the FA Cup. He obviously then went on to score the winner, which resulted in me being inundated with abuse from Arsenal fans about how I jinxed it and it was all my fault. But fortunately, I was able to put a hex on him that made his hamstring explode. A hex so powerful it also injured his replacement, Pedro. So, yeah, it did help. But I mean, that first period of the second half, it was more even-handed. There was a moment where I thought Aubameyang might score, where his shot was blocked. I don't know if you remember it. It was like a flowing move down the right.
Yeah.
He couldn't quite get the shot away. But Chelsea were growing, and I remember thinking, ooh, we could do with another one of those water breaks now. Mikel Arteta, he loves a water break. I'm going to have a water break in everything I do in life. Midway through this podcast, we're going to have a water break and Mikel Arteta's going to come on and point and shout at us and everything's going to be better in the second half.
Well, I mean, the goal came before the second half drinks break. So
I know. So I was praying for the drinks break and I got a goal. So my prayers were more than answered.
All right, fair enough. You got value for money there, that's for sure. I mean, it's a good goal. I think Hector Bellerin, to me, is looking like somebody who is perhaps finding his physicality again. You know, he looked quicker. That drive, that burst through midfield is something we've talked about a lot this season, isn't it? That we don't have players who can do that, who, you know, can break between the opposition lines either by carrying the ball or by passing the ball. And it just shows you the value of endeavour, of initiative in midfield, because that's where he was. He took it through, pushed it on. There was the incident, I think it was Christensen, and they both went down, but it fell to Pepe, then to Aubameyang. But it came from just, rather than playing the simple pass backwards to holding and going around again, let's go forward. Go forward and things happen. And I really like that part of the goal.
Yeah, and there's a physical dimension to it. He found an extra gear that I don't think we've seen from him too often since his comeback. But it's more the psychological dimension of it that I really like. It was a really courageous run. And, you know, let's not beat around the bush. When he goes into that challenge for Christensen, he could get really hurt there. I mean, you know, it's a bit... And it's actually not a terrible tackle, I don't think. I think it's a decent enough... I think he gets the ball. But, you know, it's brave from Bellerin and it's brave play. He sort of drives it on. He makes something happen. And when the ball breaks, actually, credit to Pepe, because it comes at him at a really funny angle, I think on his right foot, and he manages to sort of kill it and bring it under his spell, which keeps the move alive, finds Aubameyang, and from then on, it's just world class, isn't it?
Yeah, I really quite liked the listen-in videos that are going around where you can hear what the players are saying. And is it Jorginho who tells Zuma, right foot, right foot? And then he goes, oh, Zoo, as Aubameyang comes on his left foot. I mean,
you almost wonder if he hears it. Do you know what I mean? Because he said after the game, I know Zuma knows me well. He knows I'm going to go on my right foot. They played together at St Etienne, you see, for 2 years.
Right.
And he was like, so I went outside him on the left. But, I mean, to say that in the immediate aftermath of a game, having scored that goal, I mean, that... You never think about it really from the striker's perspective, and I'm sure it's a bit more instinctive and it happens quicker than that, but it just shows you the kind of calculations that are going on, and the way he executes it is perfect. I mean, look, Zuma's got to be unhappy, but he's also absolutely left for dead, and the finish on his weak foot, I mean, for Granit Xhaka to be celebrating that before he's even taken the shot on his weak foot tells you the red hot form.
Oh my God, just an amazing goal, and it's not the kind of goal we've seen him score a great deal for Arsenal. You know, he tends to be a first-time finisher when he gets the ball in the box. Sometimes as a touch, but more often than not, it's a first-time finish. We've rarely... I don't know how many goals he scored with his left foot. Can we find that out? I don't know if we can.
It's not very many. And I only know that because I wrote about it. I'll try and find out while you talk about what a good goal it was.
Yeah, I mean, just from the point of view of what people expect from Aubameyang, it was an extraordinary goal for him to score compared to some of the other ones. And on the occasion, on the big stage, the way that he scored it, unbelievable. Zuma turned inside out. I think I said in the blog on Sunday, it's like one of those things when you see a cartoon character and someone spins around them and they just get, their skeleton comes out, you know, because they've just been so bamboozled by what's happened. The finish is unreal. with your left foot, the finish is absolutely unbelievable. To do it with your right foot because you've got such control with your favoured foot, you know, I mean, what a goal. What an absolute dream of a goal to win an FA Cup final.
I agree. He has scored... I can't find it. Not many is basically what I remember finding out. And only a couple of headers for Arsenal, I think 2 or 3. So, yeah, it's just a sensational goal, a fitting way to win the cup final. Right in front of Ian Wright as well, I think, who was down in that corner.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, to score 2 goals in a final, you know, that is the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang final, really. And it will be remembered as such, I suspect.
I think I found it. Hang on.
Oh, here we go.
Goals with left foot, 8.
8 in the Premier League, that is, then.
Goals with his right foot, 43. So...
Yeah. So not many.
Unbelievable. What a goal. What a goal.
Yeah, about 14% of his Premier League goals have been with his left foot.
Right.
But maybe he should do it a little bit more often. I mean, it gives him another option, doesn't it, to go outside, and that was just a sensational finish. And actually, once that went in, and then we had a water break.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I was like, we're home and dry. Well, I think the sending off certainly calmed my nerves in that respect.
Yeah, me too. It was unbelievably harsh, I think. I mean, that's not...
It's crazy that VAR can't change that, isn't it? I mean, I'm not complaining, but it's properly mad.
It is. But also, fuck him and fuck Chelsea and, you know, fuck everyone involved with that football club. Basically, sure. I couldn't care less. I mean, if it were the other way around, of course, we'd have this big discussion, a contentious issue happening to Arsenal, and we would hate it. But it happened to someone else. And enough bad shit has happened to us this season for us to worry about bad shit happening to someone else. It was another nice piece of fortune for us, I suppose. You know, just after the start of the second half, they lose Pulisic. Just after the drinks break, they lose Kovacic. Do they have any more players with itch at the end of their name?
Well, no, but I tell you what, actually, at some point in the first half, David Luiz murdered Olivier Giroud in cold blood by inserting his elbow, I think, into his arsehole. Judging from Giroud's reaction, I mean, I've got to tell you, in the stadium, the scream was very, very funny.
It's very funny on the video. It's on my Twitter and I put it on the blog today. I cannot stop watching it. It's just like the...
It was a proper, like... It was like Lewis Capaldi warming up. It was an incredible sound. It brought back so many memories of seeing Giroud go to... But obviously with a crowd there, you sort of have that, you know, without this audio accompaniment, to hear the cries that accompany the anguished face. It was very funny indeed. Oh. And actually, credit to Luiz, he basically kicked Giroud out of the game, and that was fine with me.
Did we not talk about exactly that? The way that you need to deal with Giroud is basically to kick him,
make him uncomfortable,
Yeah, you know, it's just. It was glorious, and that bit is absolutely unbelievably funny. If you haven't seen it, I don't know anyone in the world who couldn't have seen it at this point. It's just the combination of the scream, the toppling over, the falling on the ground, and then Dani Ceballos running by and just sort of pointing at him. Oh my God. Olivier Giroud, he may have done us a disservice or whatever you might call it in Baku, but this time, you know, he goes down as an FA Cup final legend for me.
There he is. And another respect in which we were helped in the second half, I guess, is that Chelsea's injuries. You know, we spent a lot of time worrying about Chelsea's bench and their options from the subs, you know, but that was reduced. Because they had 2 injuries, they only had one further opportunity to make changes, which, you know, made things a little bit easier on us. I'm trying to remember now if there were sort of any nervy. I remember thinking this doesn't feel quite as comfortable as it maybe should, given that we weren't keeping the ball with the extra man.
I was a little bit worried about that side of things. I thought that with the extra man, we might just have a bit more control in the game, just keep the ball, move it around, circulate it. You know,
and
use
obviously
that
I shit
extra
myself
man.
when Kolasinac came on, obviously.
Well, what about the Emi Martinez moment when he?
Ooh.
What did you? I mean, when it happened in real time, I was like, oh no, my God, our goalkeeper is going to get sent off in an FA Cup final. This is the most absurd season of all time. And then play just went on, and they never showed a replay of it. And I was like,
the cover up. It's a cover up. I mean, yeah, I was pretty much in line with it, and the guy next to me was dead in line with it and said, "Oh, he went out." I mean, I've only seen the still that Arsenal fans are circulating, which is the still where his legs are outside, but his hands are inside. And if that is correct, then it's a genuinely extraordinary piece of judgment. Either way, I thought it was a fitting tribute to Lucas Fabianski's antics in the 2014 final, where he tore off his line towards the wing. It was a heart-in-mouth moment, shall we say.
Oh, for sure. And look, I think there's a video on the BBC or whatever, and they show it, and it is that. His legs are outside, but he's holding the ball on the line. And to be fair, to do that, and then to have the momentum to go back the way rather than further out of your area is really quite something.
Well, he had to get there, actually. I mean, you know, he didn't necessarily have to catch it and carry it out, but he had to get there. Abraham was in over the top, and, you know, he had a decent starting position, which helped him. But, I mean, the fact that he pulled that off, high risk, but very, very impressive.
Those final 10, 15, 17 minutes when they had 7 minutes of extra time were nerve-wracking. I really think they were. I know we had the lead. I know we had like 10 men, but I felt I didn't feel that well. I did not feel that well. I did not feel that well when Pepe looked like he'd fouled Pedro just outside the box, and the referee.
That was a foul. Yeah.
It was one of those where he got his leg across and got the ball, but I think he had to take the man to get the ball, if you like.
Arsene Wenger once called Anthony Taylor dishonest to his federation, and let's be honest, I'm delighted about his dishonesty to his federation. Long may it continue.
Well, you said, didn't you, on the preview that Chelsea fans, think that Anthony Taylor hates them.
Yeah.
I think they might have a point.
I think he may. Statue at the Emirates, I think.
Oh, God. And then, look, Pedro was really dangerous when he came on, picked up that injury, brave piece of goalkeeping by Emi Martinez as well. He had to, collect some crosses and some corners in the final few minutes. But we did it. We held on. The final whistle went eventually. Someone pointed out to me on Twitter yesterday, isn't it mental how Pedro picked up a really serious injury. It looked like a really, really serious injury. Was taken off after minutes and minutes of treatment on oxygen, and he didn't make anywhere near the same kind of sound as Olivier Giroud, who got a little tap in the back.
That's very, very true. I mean, it was a kind of... I found it quite a nervy last few minutes as well, because we made changes to our defence. And that's sort of one of the golden rules, isn't it, of preserving a lead. You keep the back three intact. But Luiz came off for Socrates, who... That was... I don't know, they must have strapped him on the roof of Wembley, had him struck by lightning to bring him back to life. I mean, just to see him come out, I was like, what's going on here?
That was so bizarre, that substitution where they were clearly about to make a substitution, and David Luiz is just sort of wandering around the sideline, wanders back onto the pitch like...
I know. He wanted to stay out there, I think. But, and then Kolasinac for Tierney, which, is, I mean, with love, a downgrade. But we did it. We held out. And, oh, God, when it was... how long was added on? 7 minutes? 5 minutes?
7 minutes. Time. Well, it was like the 110th or 112th minute when the whistle went because of the stoppage to Pedro and everything else. I was like, just get him off. Just get him off and blow the final whistle. Again, maybe it's not the most human reaction, but, as a football fan, as an Arsenal fan reaction, it was a bit like, oh God, what's going to happen here? They're going to play like an extra 17 minutes of time because he's been down and everything else.
Yeah. I think the one thing you can say is that the stoppage for Pedro meant that, I think it would have been difficult for Chelsea anyway with 10 men, but it sort of pressure didn't accumulate in the way it can, in the final minutes. It took the sting out a bit.
Kind of, but they kept saying stuff on TV, like they cut to Frank Lampard and Jody Morris on the sideline, and some of the Chelsea substitutes sitting there. Also David Luiz sitting there with his feet up, having come off. There's a great shot of him. But anyway, they kept saying on TV, well, the Chelsea player, they know the game is up here. They're looking very disconsolate. And I was going, shut up. You're going to make something happen here if you just keep saying that. And then Lampard looks at, they know that's it. It's slipping away from Chelsea here unless something...
There's nothing that could possibly happen.
No, there's no way they can get back into this now. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Only a crazy defensive error. But it didn't happen. And we got there. It
didn't happen, and we got there. The celebrations at the end were great. To see the reaction of the players and the manager and the hugs that were being dispensed, and some of the players who were involved in that, like Xhaka, the Danny Ceballos, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, guys who, maybe not long ago wouldn't have been considered part of what was going to happen at Arsenal. And just fantastic to see the connection between the manager and the players. I think that's Absolutely. One of the things that really struck me as I was watching those, and I've rewatched them a few times because in real time I was sort of like, oh, we've won, oh my God, I'm so happy. I'll go tweet this, tweet that, talk to this, do this on the website, get the player ratings done. I was sort of half watching and stuff. I went back to watch again, and that there is something there. There is something tangible there between the players and between the manager and the coaching staff that, they have turned what was a dismal, disappointing season and still was in many respects in terms of our league position into something that we can build on, a platform, a trophy, a Europe, all of that kind of stuff. To see the players buy into what Arteta is trying to do, and for him to be able to back up what he said to them, when he talked about, if we suffer together, we will achieve things. Here you go, guys. Here you go. There's a trophy. There's a medal. There's a celebration. There's something to add to your list of achievements as a football player. It really creates a great platform of trust between Arteta and his players to build on and to go forward from.
Yeah, it's proof of concept, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, yeah.
It's evidence that his methods can bring some success to Arsenal. And actually, it's been a crazy period, Project Restart, but there have been some really, really big landmark results in there. You look at Liverpool, you look at Man City, you look at Chelsea. Piece of silverware is huge for Arteta. To do that in your first half season of management, I think is pretty extraordinary. There are a lot of managers with a lot more experience who haven't won trophies, in their reigns as Premier League managers. And it's great for the players, and I was really happy for them because they've been through the mill. It was good to see some of the other guys out there, players who've been injured, like Martinelli and Mustafi and William Saliba in his mask, still distant. I don't know if that's because he's been in France recently or something.
Maybe so. Yeah.
That was a sort of strange component of it. And Matt Smith wandering around like a sort of schoolboy competition winner.
Wasn't that the most amazing thing? You see the stats going around that Matt Smith. We had a question about that, and I think this is true. Let me see if I got here from Malk Page, who's at Mad Malk 25. He said, spotting a delighted Matt Smith in the team-winning photo, looking like a ball boy who sneaked in, got me thinking, have we ever had a player to win an FA Cup medal who hasn't actually ever played for the club? At least not in the league or the cups. He has yet to make his senior debut for the club, and yet he has an FA Cup winner's medal, which is just an amazing story. And I know there are reasons for that. I think today, though, we should focus on on who was there and not who wasn't there. Those are maybe discussions we can have a bit later on, because I think, we need to at some point. But today we stay focused on the positive things, and that this kind of young guy beaming. He looks like about 15, doesn't he? And he's in there I could see him like just picking up the medal going, whoa, look at this.
Absolutely surreal for him, I'm sure. And great to be part of it all. And listen, I mean, I don't know if you follow Aubameyang on Instagram, but he was like broadcasting from the bus as Arsenal, partied. Some great scenes. I mean, Lacazette and Maitland-Niles showing off their moves. A brilliant clip of Pepe being caught opening a champagne bottle and then furiously explaining that it's not for him because he only drinks Fanta. Because he's a good Muslim boy. And what else? Yeah, I just reveled in it. I loved it. It was so nice to see this group. And actually... I have quite a lot of affection for quite a lot of players in this group, weirdly now. I think it's because we've been through the mill so much. I just was so relieved for them that they had this kind of release at the end of it all. Great times, great memories. It's a shame that we weren't all there, or more of us there. But listen, it happened the way it happened, and we'll be delighted regardless.
I mean... I remember during the trophy drought, we talk about how winning things for a football club was important. Winning is a habit. You get into the habit of winning, and players get experience of it. And it really is an important part of being a successful football club. It's not, something that a lot of football clubs get to experience. So you're right to point out at the top of this that we are fortunate in some ways that despite the difficulties we've had and the way the season has gone, we still get to celebrate something like winning a trophy. And I don't think we should take that for granted in any way. It is a measure of the standards, I suppose, that have been set by Arsenal, that we have this expectation of winning things. And that's a good thing as well. That pressure is important, I think, for a football club. And Arteta has spoken a lot about what he wants to do and where he wants to bring the club and what he wants to achieve at the football club. Let's talk about it from the squad point of view before I ask you a couple of things about the manager. There are going to be changes, clearly. But it is something that brings players together, these shared experiences of winning. It is something that forms a bond within a squad. It helps create a confidence in the way that they play. It builds trust with each other. I mean, you look at the moment when... Was it Aubameyang came over from the interview he was doing with BBC, I think, and all the players are in a huddle and he's sort of coming over and you can kind of see, is he the most traditional captain of all time? No. He's not the archetypal, chest-thumping leader, shouty captain guy that people might want. But the respect that he holds from that squad, from those group of players, after what he did in the semi-final to score twice in the final to help us win the cup, it was really obvious how highly he is thought of by the rest of the squad and how important he is.
Yeah, I loved that moment. I'm glad the cameras caught it. It actually reminded me, in a funny way, of kind of when the whole squad bowed down to Robert Pires. It's that thing of putting an individual on a pedestal and sort of acknowledging his class. And I loved Emi Martinez in his interview said, I told Aubameyang that he was going to score the winning goal for us. And I know it doesn't take a betting man to imagine that it might be Aubameyang, but I think you're right to point out that he led the team to this trophy. He scored the 2 goals in the semi, the 2 goals in the final. He absolutely is, in some respects, the leader of this club. Yeah. I know that there are other people within that leadership group, and I'm not diminishing their contribution, but he has his own way of providing an example. Yeah. And he absolutely stepped up. I mean, what do you want from your top striker, your biggest players in the biggest games? You want them to show up, and that's something he hasn't in his whole career. He's not always been regarded for doing that. You know, it started at Dortmund and there was a bit of that at Arsenal too. But if you look at what he did against City, if you look at what he did against Chelsea, you cannot argue with it.
No,
he absolutely assumed the responsibility. And I mean, they all love him. They all absolutely adore him, I think. And they all know how good he is. And of course, I mean, perhaps we'll get on to this, but what happens with him is going to be such a defining thing, I think, for Arsenal this summer.
I think we're going to keep him. I think he's going to sign. He looks happy. He looks like, you know, when you see him on Twitter posting "my manager" to Mikel Arteta, or on Instagram, whatever it was, you know, I think that's important for him. And I think if he this win will go a long way to convincing him that Mikel Arteta is the kind of manager who could potentially help him achieve some of his ambitions. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I think there are monetary and financial implications and reasons, you know, for a new contract and everything else. But at the same time, he does want to achieve things. And look, maybe he won't get a league title, but, you know, there could be some cups. There could be a European trophy, you know, now that we have the Europa League. And the fact that we do have Europe, the fact that we do have a bit more money, the fact that we do have this thing which has kind of protected our reputation in a way. You know, to not be in Europe next season would have been a terrible thing for Arsenal, just from the point of view of how the club is perceived. Still a big club, of course, but one that is, you know, going through the doldrums in a way. Now we've won a trophy, which is more than some clubs have done this season, of course. We also get into the Europa League straight away, and Tottenham have got to play 3 games to get into the group stages of the Europa League. That's just unbelievable. That is. Here's Jose Mourinho after Arsenal win the FA Cup.
We leapfrogged them at the last minute. I am inclined to agree. I mean, Aubameyang is happy at Arsenal, and you know we know that he's happy. I think if Arsenal pay, he'll stay. And that's what it comes down to ultimately, I think. You know, I think there's a number that if they hit and they offer him a good contract and it offers him security and, you know, all those things and a length that he's happy with, if you ask me to place a bet, I'd say we will keep him. We will keep him. But and I think that is absolutely the right decision. And if there's any debate remaining about that, I still think it is absolutely the right thing to do. I mean, he is not gonna go anywhere in a hurry, I don't think, this player, in terms of his decline. You know, it doesn't appear imminent, does it? No, it doesn't. And when he stepped up and been the clutch player in the last 2 games in the FA Cup, you know, I think it's hard to underplay the pressure that these guys would have felt going into this game, because the implications of losing were so big, you know, so big for the club, for them personally and everything else. The tunnel cam video of Aubameyang in the tunnel just before the teams came out was really interesting. The focus. I've not seen that. What happened? There's just this picture of, or the camera's on him for a few seconds as he's waiting to go out, and it's, you know what he's like as a guy. He's very upbeat. He's very cheerful. He likes a joke, which isn't to say he doesn't take things seriously. But he was just absolutely just staring straight ahead, fully focused on what he had to do, and he did it. So it's worth looking back at those. They're very good videos, actually, on the FA's YouTube channel, the tunnel cam, the manager cam. Really interesting to look at, to give you a bit of insight. But yeah, I think it is the right thing to do to extend him and to keep him. And you know, there are other issues transfer wise that we'll deal with over the coming weeks, but that is a very, very big one. You know, what a loss he would be to the squad, to the team, to the club, in terms of what he gives us. You know, so they've got to do what they've got to do here. It might cost us some money, but like, what do you want? That is basically the price of success. Well, also, the way the club will look at it is, what does it cost to keep Aubameyang for 3 years versus what does it cost to buy a replacement and pay him the appropriate salary? And actually, Aubameyang is pretty good value, I think, right now. So, yeah, I really, really, really hope he stays. And I think this is his team now. Like, you know, he's basically God. So, I think everything's geared up for him. I think the debate about his position has quietened down, to be honest, because he's just so ruthlessly efficient in the role that he's playing. I think the Arteta thing is huge because they've got something going on between them.
Yeah, they do. And it's not just Aubameyang and Arteta. I think I'm going to save the Arteta chat for part 2. Because we do have some questions about him, and I think we need to discuss the impact he's made and the job he's done since he took over last December. Before we go into part 2, though, I enjoyed a bit. This is perhaps something that might have flown under the radar a little bit. Let me just line this up here for you. You remember, James, we were talking about pre-game content and that kind of stuff, and how there wasn't a great deal of it. And we did see an interview of Emi Martinez, a long one where he was asked various questions by various journalists and what have you. And, his story, I think, has been one of the really pleasing parts. I mean, there's so many, aren't there? Emi Martinez, Mustafi, Xhaka, Maitland-Niles, these kind of redemption arcs that have taken place. Yeah. Danny Ceballos, of course, another one. All of these little nuggets of enjoyable stuff from an Arsenal point of view. Anyway, Emi Martinez, he's being asked by the journalist various things, and he's asked about a tattoo that he might have. And I'm not going to give the name of the reporter in question, but they obviously did a bit of Googling on Emi Martinez to find out some facts that may not be known about Emi Martinez. So we did in 2014 on Arseblog News. You know the way we have a tendency to do things which aren't necessarily 100% serious. 10 things you didn't know about Emi Martinez. Right? Number 4, for example, he cites his goalkeeping influences as David Seaman, Goycochea, and Stefan Onsho. As a child, this is part of the facts. As a child, he was once introduced to Argentina legends Mario Kempes and Ozzy Ardiles at a summer camp for kids. He was so nervous, he vomited chewing gum into Kempes' beard, requiring him to shave it off. There's another little known fact about Emi Martinez about how he went for a trial at Norwich and Delia Smith kept shouting, "Let's be having you!" and he had to escape through a window. So it's fair to say that these facts weren't necessarily believable.
They were flexible with the truth.
Number six. Here's what number 6 is. Martinez told Argentine newspaper La Noticia Impostura that when he first arrived at the club, Jens Lehmann was a massive help to him and gave him a piece of advice that he always remembered and had tattooed on his back in Gothic script. What he had tattooed on his back is, "Now this mountain I must climb feels like the world upon my shoulders. Through the clouds I see love shine. It keeps me warm as life grows colder." Do you recognize that at all?
Yeah. Down his leg, does he have tattooed, "I want to know what love is"?
Not quite, but this is...
This mountain I must climb feels like the world upon my shoulder.
Anyway, he was asked in this interview, I believe you have a tattoo. And he was like, "A tattoo?" And the reporter said, Jens, it was to do with Jens Lehmann, some advice he gave you. "Now this mountain I must climb." And he was like, "Jens? No, I don't know what this is." And he was like, "No, I don't know what this is." And then they said, "Oh, well, sorry, I'll ask you a different question." So right up there with Carl Jenkinson's dad, this one for me. So I'm quite chuffed.
That is sensational. Congratulations.
That is good.
And you said in Gothic script, which is, I guess, a 6-year forerunner for the font that Arsenal ended up using on the back of their shirts.
There you go.
You knew all along.
I knew the result of the FA Cup and everything. I should have put some money on this. But hey, there you go. Well, look, there's the end of part 1 of this FA Cup winning Arsecast Extra. We're going to take a short break. We will be back with your questions and more in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part 2 of the FA Cup final winning Arsecast Extra. My brain is just about getting back to normal after the weekend. This is where we answer questions that you send to us on Twitter at Gunnerblog and at Arseblog. I'm fucking these up on a quite regular basis now, aren't I? I think I used to be better.
Really?
Yeah, I think I used to be better at this.
Old age creeping in.
Could be. Just the trauma of the season is getting on top of me. Twitter, Gunnerblog, Arseblog, also on the Arseblog Facebook page, and the Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. Let me ask you the first question, James, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It comes from Ian Stone, who's at Ian D. Stone, and he says, did it work out for the best that Arteta didn't take over straight after Arsene Wenger? Much harder to follow a legend than Unai Emery. Would have been much more difficult to sideline Ozil, for example. But just the general point, leaving aside the Ozil thing, which I don't want to discuss today, just the idea of Arteta coming in when he did versus in May 2018.
So I'm in the camp that thinks it was a good thing that he wasn't the first man. I'll be honest, it might have been better if he'd come in maybe a month earlier. I definitely would concede that, or maybe slightly before that. But I do think there was a benefit to having someone kind of act as a buffer, as kind of expectations were raised and then lowered accordingly and kind of recalibrated to our sort of new reality. And I do think a fair bit of squad churn kind of, did some of the work for Arteta. There's still a lot more to go. Let's be clear about that. But yes, I think on the whole, it's not a golden rule, but it's generally better to be the guy after the guy when you're replacing someone as iconic and important as Wenger. But you could ask the question, where would we be?
Yeah.
If Arteta had been appointed in 2018, That
is true. When you hear him talk and when you look at the clarity with which he approaches the job and what he wants from his players, what he wants from his staff and from the club, you could say we could be 18 months further down the line. Whether it would have been quite as successful. I mean, he now has a trophy under his belt, and that is a big, big thing. And I think we need to discuss that in terms of what leverage it gives him, or we discussed it from the point of view of Aubameyang, didn't we? That this trust that Arteta's methods can result in things happening, good things happening. But it is a big thing for him to have come in. So you could make that argument. I do think potentially, given the end of the Wenger era, it needed not necessarily to get quite as bad as it did, but I think it did need to sort of not go wrong either. I don't know how to express this. I think maybe he was not 100% the right guy in May 2018, but was 100% the right guy in November, December 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Arteta was being talked about in May 2018, and I had concerns about, his lack of experience and just the scale of the job in terms of coming in after Wenger. So, yeah, I sort of am inclined to say, the way it's worked out, I don't really believe in kind of fate or anything like that, but, it does feel like it makes more sense this time.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll never know. We'll never know what he would have if he was ready in 2018. Clearly, he's ready now, and he's doing a fantastic job. And I just think, I'll tell you what I thought coming away from it is this guy is really a good coach. I mean, for me, football since the restart has been kind of a coach's medium. It's been a bit more tactical. They've been able to influence games more with the water breaks, with actually being audible on the pitch. And he has come to the fore. And I think that speaks to his ability. And we know that he's a good coach because look at the tune he's getting out of this team that looked so dismal under Unai just a matter of months ago. I mean, that says something about Emery as well, I guess. But it also tells you a lot about Arteta. It's not like he's taken over and got a new squad of players.
Yeah.
In January, he got Pablo Mari and Cedric Suarez. How many games have they played between them? You know, how many minutes? Hardly any. He's done this with a group that he inherited. So I think it tells you everything you need to know about his coaching ability. Arsenal are in this weird position now where we're miles away from where we want to be. But in Arteta, and I would argue in Aubameyang as well, I think we've got two guys that we can't afford to sort of be too long-term about as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, if Arteta does a good job at Arsenal over the next 2 years, clubs who can compete at the very top are going to knock on our door.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something Arsenal have to be cognizant of. And you know, again, that's the price of success in a way, is that when you do a good job, people want you. It's the same with players. It's the same with coaches. And, you know I've said this before, but to me, I know football is different now and it's more modern and the setups at clubs are more modern and everything else. But to me, Arteta feels more like a manager than a coach. Mm-hmm. Something in between a Wenger and an Emery, if you like, in terms of the job profile. Emery was pure coach. That's all he was. He was the first team coach. Wenger was the manager of the football club. I feel like Arteta has kind of taken some of that in terms of the way that he talks, in terms of the relationships. His man management is really good. The way that he's dealt with situations and dealt with players. And I think we have to recognize what he has achieved in his first season as a manager in whatever amount of games it is. It's fewer than 30 games. He's won a trophy. That's huge. For him, personally, for the club, obviously. But lots of really good coaches and really good managers go years and years before they win anything, if they ever win anything at all. You know, so to get that kind of monkey off your back so quickly is an amazing thing. To do it in the circumstances in which he has done it is even more remarkable. Because he came into a club that was in disarray. It was a shambles. The way that Arsenal Football Club was when he came in was little short of disgraceful. You know? Where we were, what was happening, what the fans were thinking, the relationship between the fans and some of the players, the executives, all of that kind of stuff. It was in the toilet. Absolutely in the toilet. At Christmas, the most trying time of the year, where you've no time to really work with players on the training ground, for him to come in and pick up those pieces and end this season with a trophy is unbelievable. And that's not even mentioning a fucking worldwide pandemic that shut football down for 3 months. You know, this is a guy who's got something. It is in some ways, I know it's a little bit different, but you remember the Patrick Vieira debut against Sheffield Wednesday? When he came on the pitch and everyone went, whoa, this is a player. I think it's something similar in that regard. It's like 120 days active as Arsenal manager. He's won a trophy. And people and fans, I think, were well within their rights to be skeptical when Arteta got the job. Now, I was for it and behind it and have been, and I make no apologies for that and make no bones about that. But I completely understood people who went, well, he's never managed a game. He's never managed a game of football. What is he going to do?
It's a pretty valid objection.
Absolutely it is. And I think, I hope for those people who had those concerns and who were perfectly reasonable to have those concerns, that he has convinced them to some extent or another that he is the right choice and was the right choice. And for the criticisms that we have leveled at the club and the executives throughout this season, which I think are valid and have been valid, we got to give them credit for this one. We got to give them credit for making the brave appointment, because there could have been an easier appointment. And let me just add one other thing to this before I stop pontificating. This is the second time that Mikel Arteta has arrived at Arsenal when it's been in a fucking mess. 2012, when he arrived in that panic buy end of season lunacy, when we brought in him, Per Mertesacker, Park, Benayoun and Andre Santos. So there's a fluctuation of successful signings, if ever there was. Remember how bad it was. We'd just been beaten 8-2 at Old Trafford. We'd lost Fabregas. We'd lost Nasri. The summer had been managed appallingly. The club was in a mess again. And Arteta, as a player, played a significant part in stabilising things, putting things back on something approaching the right track and helping us back to winning trophies again. Like, it wasn't just him, but he was a big part of that. Him and Per Mertesacker, who is at the club now as academy manager. So this is not the first time that Arteta has come in to a football club which is all over the place and added a measure of stability and security and intelligence and hard work and example. And it's just a strange quirk, I guess, of his footballing life that it's happened twice at Arsenal. And he's had a big impact, and I'm so delighted for him that the things that he said about changing the culture, about changing the mindset, about what's acceptable, what's non-negotiable, all of those things. He said the right things, but he's backed them up, and we have ended this season with some measure of success, with a trophy, with European football next season. It's amazing and wonderful, and it augurs well for our future as a football club and what he can do in this job. And he's also made it very, very difficult for the club not to back him, because he can say all the things, but if he couldn't back it up, the club could be, well, maybe. It's now a case of, look what I did with scant resources and no signings and a squad that is, by any measure, imbalanced. Let's say that. I don't want to be disrespectful on a day after we've won a trophy. Look what I did with that. Now think about what I can do if you give me what I think we need. So
yeah. I mean, listen, and I appreciate it. It's not... the club are in a difficult position financially. You know, they can't do everything, I'm sure, that they would like to do. But I have the strong sense that Mikel Arteta is going right to the very top. And I think Arsenal need to do everything they can to make sure that is with them. Yeah. And, you know, it's going to be difficult, but that's the position we're in. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great. It's great for him because, like you say, it lends him a lot of credibility and leverage in all those conversations.
I mean, we had a question. Let me ask you this one before you do a question. Grant the Perch, who's at Grant 61740-626, who says, do you think Arteta will be given proper funding for transfers, or will we have to make do with loans and fading stars in their 30s?
I don't know if there's proper funding there. I don't really know how he can be given what we fans would determine big money. And I'm not saying that to be a downer. I just can't see many businesses being able to do that in the current market. I know Chelsea are out there spending cash, but we know they're in a very particular financial situation. Same is going to be true of someone like Man City. Whether Arsenal can do that, I just don't know. What I think that means is that Arsenal will have to operate cleverly. They will have to operate smartly. There's no way we can go out and do what... Chelsea have lost this final, but they've bought Timo Werner, they've bought Ziyech from Ajax, and they're probably going to buy Kai Havertz. I doubt very much that Arsenal could afford to buy one of those guys, you know? Maybe Ziyech because he had a release clause. But Arsenal needs to be... I mean, listen... To quote Raul Sanllehi, they need to outsmart the market. And this time, they really need to. I mean, they don't have a choice. They have to operate in that fashion. There's no way that they can go out and buy a load of established stars for Arteta. I just don't see it personally. Do you think that's possible?
No, not unless we sell for big money and reinvest it that way, or... KSE and the Cronkies look at what they've got in a manager and decide that they're going to have to back him, because like you say, Chelsea have spent big and are going to spend big, and they've bought some really good attacking players to add to some of the very good attacking players they already have. And you would imagine after what they saw on Saturday at Wembley, they're going to buy some defenders too, because they need to do that. United will spend. They've got Champions League money. Man City, we know, are going to spend. There's talk about them having a £300 million budget, which is two fingers to FFP, of course. Liverpool, they're such a good team anyway. They are going to spend. All those teams are going to spend. So, unless there is some measure of ambition and, whether it's in a combination of intelligence and outsmarting the market and a little bit of help from on high to get some deals done, the risk is that regardless of how good Arteta is, we're going to find it very difficult to bridge that gap. But I think he has been clear. Well, is key. He has been clear, though, hasn't he, about what he wants and about improving the squad and making it better and making it easier for him to do the job that he wants to do. And I think this cup win is evidence that if you're the owner of a football club, you've got something. It's like when Bukayo Saka had this breakthrough season and we went, whoa, we've got to give this kid the contract because he's good. It's the same with Arteta. You win a trophy after 6 months in those circumstances, you've got something as a manager. And you've got to recognise that. You've got to protect it. And protecting it isn't just giving Arteta a new contract, because, he strikes me as the kind of guy that, if he doesn't feel like he's going to be able to do the work he wants to do, then that'll be that.
Yeah, I think so. As I said, I think selling well is going to be the key for Arsenal this summer, and trying to leverage the players we have to enable us to bring others in, be that in swaps or by getting decent fees for them. Let's have a question. This was a question, you mentioned him there, Saka. Successesto on Twitter says, loved the performance through and through. Biggest question for me is, do you make any note of the recent exclusions of Saka from the squad? Seems a bit odd that his play has decreased so drastically after signing the contract.
Maybe. I mean, I do wonder if he's had a bit of an injury. He did take a big kick, didn't he, in one of the games? Was it against Leicester, so it's also coincided with that. I thought
he's just like bloody Ozil, isn't he? He's got his contract now, he's doing nothing.
He just put his feet up, just wasting away, exactly. No, I mean, I think, I can understand that point of view. I think probably when Arteta talked about players playing through pain, there have been some who haven't played a great deal because of that. Maybe he's one of them. I don't read a huge amount into it. Did he look happy after he won the FA Cup? Yes, he did. He made a contribution to that? Yes, he did. And I think that's one of the great things about what we saw were the celebrations, the Hale End boys, Joe Willock, Eddie Nketiah, Bukayo Saka, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. It was a...
Little Matt Smith.
7-year-old Matt Smith coming out on the pitch and getting this thing.
I agree with you. I think that there may be an element of his contract might have been a factor in the selection. I do think that it makes sense, doesn't it? When you want to convince a player to stay, you're going to make sure that player is playing plenty of football. Even if it's maybe more football than you'd ideally put into the legs of a guy who's 18 years old or whatever it might be. And I think that, now that that's done, they're probably taking a bit of a longer term view of his development, and maybe they thought we don't need to risk him. I also think, look at the final. I mean, Arsene Wenger, Mikel Arteta went with experience. Do you know what I mean? For the most part, apart from Eddie Nketiah coming on for Lacazette, it was Kolasinac who came on. Joe Willock didn't even get off the bench, which is a pretty rare event.
Yeah.
So I think it showed that there was leaning into the experienced players a bit more. But still, what an experience, as you say, for those players to be part of it on the day.
Yeah.
And have won something early on.
Exactly. Won something in their careers, it makes a difference. And they were part of it in the earlier rounds. You know, you think about some of the games that they had and the contributions they made in some of the earlier games. You know, Reece Nelson against Portsmouth. I think Eddie scored against Leeds, didn't he? Joe Willock had a good game and scored in one of the games as well. So, you know, they all played their part. So it was a really nice part of winning. Okay, let me ask you this. We had a question here from Niall O'Connor on the Discord. He says, how confident are you that Pepe will kick on next season? I know we briefly mentioned him in the first half. He said, did you also notice he had black coloured boots? He looked like the perfect homage to an 80s bowler in his new kit. But I thought Pepe's game was really, really impressive. Unlucky not to score that goal. And then, of course, you know, what he did, I think, off the ball would have been really pleasing for Mikel Arteta.
I agree. And actually, I think that it's a big thing to consider when we think about how the shape of the team might change and evolve, because one thing that this formation enables Arteta to do is to get Aubameyang and Pepe into more central areas. You know, he's playing a lot narrower than he was, and we're seeing the benefit of that. I thought he was excellent. Like I said, I thought it was his best game for Arsenal in the cup final. I just thought there was a sharpness about everything he did. His defensive work rate was good. We were seeing him begin to interchange positions more, you know, swapping flanks with Aubameyang every now and then, turning up, like, you know, right in the middle of the pitch. I am encouraged by Pepe. Look, I think we paid too much money for him. I think he was too expensive, and I don't know if it was a good allocation of resource. But if you set that aside, do I think he can be a big player for this team in the next 3 years? Absolutely, certainly. And he is a good age. I mean, that is the thing, and that's partly why he was expensive, is that he's now, 25? So, you know, he is in the prime of his career, and is going to be for the next couple of seasons.
Yeah. I think it's worth, you know, again, taking into account the context and the circumstances in which he's played his first season in England. You know, he arrived fairly late in the summer. He was part of a team which was, you know, dwindling in terms of its performance level from basically the first few weeks of the season. It just started to go downhill. All the adaptation issues that he would have had in terms of a new country, a new language, etc., etc. Emery goes, Freddie comes in, Mikel Arteta comes in. There are demands on him to play, I think, in a different way than he played at Lille. You know, he's not being asked to do what he did there, which he was really, really good at, which is why Arsenal paid all that money. So he's having to sort of not relearn, but recalibrate the way that he plays the game. Lockdown, pandemic, You know, I think he's ended the season strongly. I think he's almost on 10 goals, 10 assists. So it's not a bad first season contribution for him. And I think it's definitely something for him to build on. So like you, I think it was a bit too expensive. But I'm more positive about him now than I might have been a little while ago.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, he is a modern footballer who can be a big part of this team. And I really liked what I saw from him against Chelsea. I do think, you know, his shooting ability is fantastic. He does a great thing where he sort of puts his studs on the ball and he can, you know, roll past somebody.
Oh, that nutmeg, was it on Rudiger on halfway?
Yeah.
Delicious.
And there was another one on the edge of the box, actually.
Yeah, won a free kick,
Nutmeg. So, yeah, he was on fire, I thought, in this game. And I really want it to work out for him. And I think it's going to, in as far as I think he'll be a big part of Arteta's plans next season. And I agree. Can't ask for much more than that.
I agree. Is it your question or my question?
It's mine.
Okay.
So this question starts with a question, but I think the real question is at the end of the question. It's from Jay Takezo on the Discord, and they say, whose is the most important redemption story under Arteta this season? There's Xhaka and Mustafi at the top of most people's list, but for me, it's Ainsley Maitland-Niles, an academy graduate with real technique and athleticism who can play anywhere besides striker or centre-half. When he's on his finest fettle, there's surely no way we could replace his utility, ability and club loyalty in the transfer market without a significant spend.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we had one on Twitter as well from Joseph Green, who says, what more does Ainsley Maitland-Niles need to do to prove himself? 22 years old, played 100 games, versatile player with great attributes, etc., etc. I think that is, certainly in the last couple of weeks, it's been the most surprising one. When you consider where Xhaka was and how he's ended the season, that's a huge one. When you consider the way Mustafi was perceived and the way that his season had gone, for Arteta to come in and use him and make him a regular was there's a thin line, isn't there, between bravery and foolishness sometimes. Arteta came in and immediately put Mustafi in his team, despite the fact that if Mustafi had Mustafied to the extent that he'd Mustafied before, there would be huge criticism of Arteta. It was like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you see what this player has done? So that, I think is a testament to the way Mustafi has played and the faith that Arteta has shown in him. The Ceballos, maybe not quite to the same extent, but to see a lone player play with the commitment and desire and energy and everything else that he has is amazing. But it was a few weeks ago, only a few weeks ago, wasn't it, that your colleague David Ornstein was writing about how Maitland-Niles is resigned to the fact that he's going to have to leave Arsenal because, I guess because he's not being played or things weren't going as well as he wanted or to fulfill his own ambitions as a player, he would have to leave. I hope he's having second thoughts now. Because he played really well in the semi-final, really well in the final. And I think it's a bit reductive to say that the reason he played in the final was because he played well in the semi-final. I know that that was part of it, but ultimately he played in the final, a game that we had to win for all kinds of reasons that we've talked about plenty. He played in that final because Mikel Arteta thought he was the best guy on the day to help him do what he wanted to do tactically, to beat Chelsea, to win the cup, to qualify for Europe, to save our season. He didn't just do Ainsley Maitland-Niles a favour because he played well in the semi. He didn't just pick Ainsley Maitland-Niles in an FA Cup final of such importance because he wanted to convince him to stay. It was a show of faith in Maitland-Niles as a player. And I think
it's a lot easier to pick Saka for Arteta.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The boy who's under a long-term contract, exactly. Everyone loves.
That's the easy choice. So I think if you're Ainsley Maitland-Niles now, your mind, I hope, is in a very different place than it was maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, where you could understand him questioning, well, what's my role? What does the coach really think of me? I haven't played very much. He challenged me to get my head down and work hard. I've done that, but what's happening? And he's got an FA Cup winner's medal. And there are other players in this squad, bigger reputations, with more hubris, who don't have that, who missed out because of their own fault. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to have to mention the names, but, what have they got to show for FA Cup final day? Nothing. Picture of your holidays. Go fuck yourself. Maitland-Niles has shown you, and again, it comes back to what Arteta said about everybody being given a chance if you work hard and if you're willing to do the non-negotiables and all that kind of stuff. His reward is an FA Cup final appearance, an FA Cup final win, and his reputation as a player being enhanced because of that. Somebody who has ended this season a better player, an improved player, and I think somebody who we should keep, even if he could raise money. I think he's a player we should be keeping because of the versatility that he has, the attributes that he has in the modern game. They're really, really important, and maybe, there's time to reposition him, perhaps, if we're looking at having to build our squad in a different way without money. Can he play in midfield? Can he be repurposed into that kind of modern central midfield player? I don't know, but it certainly feels a lot more achievable now than it did a couple of months ago.
And I agree, by the way, the fact that there are people out there, Arsenal players under contract for Arsenal who are just not in any way a part of the day. Mohamed El Neni should be fucking ashamed of himself.
Well,
remember Mohamed El Neni, guys. Remember Mohamed El Neni.
Well, look, without wanting to put a downer on it, Mohamed El Neni is, look, we can read too much into social media stuff. Mohamed El Neni is sending his congratulations to the team. Lauren Koscielny, who left the club under such a cloud, is sending congratulations to the team, while Guendouzi is posting a picture of his holidays. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I mean, that is. I mean, even there's a contrast, isn't there, in Ozil and Guendouzi's social media. So yeah, I mean, not good to see. But on Maitland-Niles, I think he was picked, to be honest, because I think Arteta really trusts him defensively. And when I watched the game for a second time, which was a lot more enjoyable and less stressful, I noticed how every time Chelsea went forward, Maitland-Niles checked his shoulder, saw Reece James, and followed him everywhere he went. And Reece James was desperately trying to find space because he's a real threat in the attack. He was moving in field, he was stepping into the midfield. Everywhere he went, Maitland-Niles was with him. And then when Arsenal won the ball, bang, he was off, breaking into the space on the left-hand side. He's an amazing athlete. He never looks tired. He never looks weary. And he's got really good, I think, defensive instincts. And he's a smart player on the pitch in terms of how he positions himself. And Arteta really, really values that. Now, I don't know if he's going to stay or not. I would like to see him stay, as I would love all the academy players to become a part of the squad. And I think he can be a really useful big game player. Like when I watched Maitland-Niles in this cup final, I actually thought about when Ferguson used to have players like Park or Fletcher or John O'Shea, and I'm not saying that as a discredit to Maitland-Niles at all. Yeah. They were players who were kind of Swiss Army knives who in a big game you would deploy because you knew if you gave them a job, they would do it. And they were so important in winning the biggest trophies for United, leagues and Champions Leagues. They didn't play every single week, but they were there when they were needed. And I think that he does have that potential. Whether that is a role that he is happy to play at Arsenal, I don't know. And what happens with him positionally if we move away from a system that has wing backs, I don't know either. But I would love to see him stay.
Yeah, me too. On that, where did we have this question? Scott McMurdo on Twitter, @ScottMcMurdo. Do you expect a change of shape next season? We all know Arteta wants a creative midfielder to be in the 11. Does that have to come at the expense of a back three?
Interesting question. I was thinking about this during the game, and I was thinking, so this is a bit of a complex thought, but I was thinking, sometimes we get really bogged down in sort of, what the formation is, but I was thinking Arteta's 4-3-3 might not look that different from the current team. The reason I say that is he's going to want to keep Aubameyang and Pepe narrow, right? In his sort of front five, as it were, which means you're still going to need attacking width to come from wing-back type areas, right? So if it's Tierney and Bellerin or Tierney and Maitland-Niles, then that leaves you with 5 players to play with, right? And between centre-half and central midfield. And I wonder if you put a midfield 3 in there, would Granit Xhaka, as one of those central midfielders, end up kind of dropping into a back 3 anyway? So I think the shape would be weirdly similar. So let's say the shape was like, for argument's sake, Xhaka, Ceballos, and someone more creative. I don't know what he's called, but let's say creative number 8. So it's theoretically, it's a 4-3-3 with fullbacks and that midfield 3 and that front 3. I think in practice going forward, the shape would basically be the same as we saw in the cup final, with Xhaka dropping in to where Tierney's playing now as the kind of left-sided centre-half, Tierney pushing on. And but you would have an extra creative player who's maybe a little bit more forward-thinking in the middle of the pitch. Because I think it becomes difficult to include what we would call a conventional number 10, an Ozil, and also have Aubameyang and Pepe in those central areas, unless you replace Lacazette, I guess.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see what he's going to do in this sort of brief off period that we have before the new season starts on September the 12th. Mad, isn't it? The Community Shield is on August the 28th or 29th or something like that. So I suspect it could be one of those games where both Arsenal and Liverpool play young sides, might be a way of putting it. But I am really interested to see, and I suppose we'll know or be able to speculate on that a little bit more when we look at what kind of recruitment we make. Whether it's defenders that we bring in or let go, or whether we bring in the kind of attacking midfield player whose presence demand or more or less suggests you're going to play a certain way. So right now we're waiting to see what he's going to do in the transfer market. Here's a question from Callum, who's at Cal Arsenal, who says, can you rank our last 4 FA Cups in terms of satisfaction? So the last 4 out of the 14 that we've won, that nobody else has ever won 14, but just the last 4, James.
Okay, I can actually. And I personally find it relatively easy.
Okay.
So for me, number 1 remains the 2014 one because of the wait for it. Number 4 would be Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of relatively routine on the day, but still very, very nice. And I think. Personally, I think number 2 would actually be 2017 for me. But I think a lot of people will say number 2 is this one. But I think there might be a bit of a recency bias there. 2017 was such an upset, I thought, on the day. And it's such... I mean, I know it's trying to emphasise this again. Also, just the fact that there were fans there meant that I sort of found it a more... I don't know, sort of thrilling occasion. Look, I really enjoyed them all, though. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, I mean, I go with you on the first, number 1 and number 4. I would put 2020 as number 2, I think, because of everything that's gone on this season, because of, all the things that have happened and the sort of turmoil that's been present at Arsenal and how much was riding on this game and what it might mean for the future. Which is really important, an important consideration. I think whatever happened in 2017, the Arsene Wenger era was coming to an end. I think we all knew that. I think
should have ended, probably.
Yeah.
Earlier.
It's just for what this means and what we could do going forward and what it can help us achieve, I hope, in the coming years. I think this one goes up there for me. So
no one's really asking about Europe. How do you reflect on the fact that this actually gets us into Europe again?
Well, look, I think it gives us, again, 2 shots at Champions League. It gives us another trophy to play for. It gives us more games, which I think is an important part of what Arteta is going to want to do when we've got a young squad like we do. Like maybe some of these players might go out on loan and what have you. I think had we not had European football, I think we'd have had to trim the squad in some ways, right? Because you wouldn't have had that midweek football. You'd be looking at maybe loaning out maybe 3 or 4 of the young players that we have. And I do think maybe 1 or 2 will go out on loan, but it just gives you that bit more game time.
It does, yeah.
Which I think is important, particularly if we were going to play a new system, to bed that in, but also to give game time to some of the players that we need to give game time to. So, look, it's a chance for a European trophy. There was a point where I thought, like, fuck it, I don't care about the Europa League. I don't care about the Thursday, Sunday thing. As the season went on and as it became clear due to COVID and the financial implications of not being in Europe, it certainly grew in importance for me. And that was a big part of the satisfaction of winning the cup this year. Maybe it says something about where we are, that it feels so good to be in the Europa League, but that's the reality of the situation. I think we needed it. I think we really needed it. And I'm delighted we're there. So,
yeah, and let me be clear. I don't necessarily think it's going to be great fun to be in it. I mean, especially in an environment without supporters. You know, a lot of the appeal of European football is sort of gone. But I think financially it's massive. And I think actually sort of for the status of the club, it does actually matter. I think, you know, it would have just been another indicator of decline at a period where we really don't need that. And I think your point about players is a really interesting one. I mean, it almost casts a very different, not very different, but a slightly different light on the goalkeeper situation, for example. I mean, if you have no European football, you absolutely, there's no question about it, have to sell one of those goalkeepers. At least this way, if you have two good goalkeepers, or if you're trying to attract a new number two, if someone does go, you're able to actually offer them a fair amount of games.
Yeah.
And that matters, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we had a question from B at AFC87B, I guess. He said, do you see a scenario where we can drop Emi for the start of next season, knowing that means he will leave? He seems to fit what we need in a goalkeeper so well and brings a lot of personality to the team. Surely it's time to cash in on Leno. I think we'll keep both next season is my feeling on it. I think we'll keep both and let the battle commence, if you like, for the number one spot, which, you know, I'm all for.
Interesting. I mean, I think certainly Emi will feel like, well, I don't deserve to lose this shirt. And Leno will feel exactly the same, I guess, especially given the way that he lost it. It is really difficult to call between them. Do you have a preference?
I don't think Emi Martinez has done anything to lose his place in the team. It's a really difficult one because Leno has been so good. You know, he's been really, really good. But, yeah, I mean, if a guy gets into the team and takes his chance and plays really well, it's a tough one for Arteta. It really is. It really is. I like Emi a lot. I like his personality. I like his size a bit more than Leno. I like his, I'm not sure, I mean, the distribution I think is generally good. Nice. I mean, one of the things we haven't talked about, James, is how well Arsenal played it around at the back. Yeah, under really well. Some serious pressure from Chelsea at times. And like, I'm sure you were the same. I'm sure many people listening to this are the same. There is an element of heart in mouth at times with some of it, because it doesn't take much for it to go wrong. But I think there was an assurance and a conviction and a deliberateness in what we did in those situations that's part of what they're being told to do. This is how they're being told to play, and they're executing it really well. So I know I've gone off the goalkeeping thing a bit there, but I thought that was probably worth mentioning.
No, and it really struck me rewatching it how well Arsenal did that, and also, as I said earlier, the variety of ways in which they did it.
What's your thought on the goalkeeper? I mean, it's a difficult one, but in some ways, it's a really nice problem to have, isn't it?
It is, and certainly it was the fashion a few years ago, wasn't it, that to have two great goalkeepers for every big club. I mean, I think it will be very difficult if someone offers Arsenal a good chunk of money for one of them. You know, given what we've said about the need to rebuild and the lack of finances, if you do get a very good offer for one of them, I think it is tempting to sell. It
might be, yeah. I mean, that's a reality, that if a good offer comes in for one of those goalkeepers, like we said before, I mean, winning the FA Cup puts a positive spin on everything and gives everything this nice, warm, glowing feeling. But at the end of the day, what we said about pretty much everybody in the squad, bar a few being potential candidates to be sold to raise money, remains true, you know? And that might mean a decision that's difficult to take or one we don't like, but that's where we are, you know?
Yeah, and I'm not sure, well, I mean, we probably won't ever find out that either of these goalkeepers is Premier League winning calibre, but I am pretty convinced that either of them would be good enough to get you into the top four. I mean, Chelsea have got into the top 4.
And they don't have a goalkeeper we're talking of, yeah. So
I think Liverpool got in there with, it was either Mignolet or Karius or someone like that. I really, really believe that Arsenal, with either Martinez or Leno, are in a decent position to sort of achieve their immediate goals.
Yeah, they're not the upgrades we need to make most urgently. That's,
No.
we're good with what we've got. And at some point, if we need to upgrade, then that's a bridge we cross when we come to it. But
maybe I can imagine a situation, I'm sort of playing it out in my mind, where, Mikel Arteta comes out and says, we don't have a number 1 goalkeeper, we have a Premier League goalkeeper and we have a European, do you know what I mean? Like something like that. And we find ourselves at next year's cup final having the age-old debate about who's going to start.
I like that. Next year's cup final, like it's a sure thing that we're going to get there. Well, I mean, that's what we do. We're the Arsenal. We're the FA Cup owners. Let's do a few kind of quick ones.
Okay, I like this one very quickly, by the way, which is from John Foster on the Discord. Good morning, chaps. Would you sell Anthony Taylor in the summer, or would you give him a new contract?
I like that one too. That's very good. Give him a new contract for sure. Jay Takezo on the Discord. I think he had one earlier. He was talking about Kieran Tierney. He tucks his shirt in and is the only player to do that in the team. Does this make him a better footballer? And why do I just love him so much?
I'm not sure it makes him a better footballer, but I did like that as soon as it had come untucked actually just before he was substituted, and as soon as he left the pitch over on the far side, he was like, oh, I've noticed that's out, and he popped it back in. Very, very smart boy. I love Kieran Tierney. I feel like Mikel Arteta might be his dad, and he's just found out the nature of their embrace. It was like watching one of those Families Reunited documentaries on ITV.
Yeah.
But listen, he's such a good character. And the thing is, he's not just a good character, he's a very good footballer too.
He really is. He really is. I think, since the restart, he has shown exactly why we paid the money that we did. And, before the season began, I spoke to our friend Kevin at what's his podcast now? I was going to say he was the Lord of the Wing. He used to be the Lord of the Wing, A Celtic State of Mind. And we talked about Kieran Tierney, and, he said to me, look, you've got a gem here. You've got an absolute gem on your hands, and it's absolutely right. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, with an injury-free season under his belt. It'll be great to see. It's amazing to think he's only 22. He's been around for so long. He's played a lot of football.
Yeah. He's played a lot of football. He's missed a lot of football as well with injuries. So I'm really excited for him. And the role he's played in recent weeks has been, I think, incredibly demanding, tactically complex, has involved him playing centrally, which is not something he's massively accustomed to. Has involved him being out on the wing back, being an exit ball from left back as well. I think he's been brilliant, and he's probably our best defender, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he's just an out-and-out defender. He loves it. He relishes the physical challenge of the game. There's just so much to like about him and his character. And look, you can't have 11 Kieran Tierneys in your team. They just don't exist. But to have one is fantastic. And the example that he sets in terms of how he plays and how he prepares, and all those things. I think what's interesting is that he's a modern player that fans can identify with. The way some players, they have a lifestyle which is very different to yours or mine or the average guy in the street. They have the trappings of wealth and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard to identify with that. But, without being too redundant about it, the Tesco bag thing, it just shows there's a sort of down-to-earthness about him that we can identify with. And I think that's something that we've been missing a little bit. And I think it's another thing that we have to give Mikel Arteta some credit for, is that he has rebuilt connections between fans and the club, and fans and players, and fans and the guy who's in the hot seat as the manager. There were a lot of things to reconnect, and he's done that very well. And Tierney's been part of that. He's great. I love him. And if Mikel Arteta is his real dad and doesn't want to take responsibility for that, I will adopt him, just so he knows, he's got a safety net there.
I thought this was an interesting question, by the way. Alistair Wood, I meant to ask it earlier, but with the focus being on the upcoming transfer window, now the season has ended, How do you now assess last summer's window, both in terms of how the individual signings have done and also the executive committee's performance on the signings overall?
I really think that's
Tierney,
something.
of course, is one of those guys.
Tierney's one of them. Pepe's one of them. Louise, of course. Ceballos.
Martinelli. I mean, when you begin to list the names individually, I think it does them some credit.
Yeah. Look, and when you end the season with a trophy, it puts a gloss on everything. I think potentially they're signings which next season might prove their worth a bit more than they did this season, if you like. It's hard. It's hard not to look at how bad this season has been and also tie it into the players that we've had. Some of them have been impressive. Some of them have been less than impressive. There have been reasons and context and circumstances and all of those things. So, we still finished 8th with a record low number of points and goals and all that kind of stuff in the Premier League, which is, ultimately the bread and butter. But I'm positive about some of these players in a way that I wasn't. So, yeah,
it's a fascinating summer coming up, I think. Really fascinating.
It's one that I need to actually stop and have a think about. And, I'm going to do the player ratings, season player ratings on Arseblog this week. And, it's maybe one of those you have to step back from the FA Cup a bit to do properly. But at the same time, you have to accept that when players contribute to a trophy-winning season, they deserve credit for that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think some of those players individually have done pretty well, and a lot of them have come good later in the season. Let's say that. I mean, Pepe early on wasn't looking brilliant. Tierney was injured. Ceballos nearly left the club in January. But I think that the question is about allocation of resource, really. When you look at last summer, and we spent a lot of money on, for example, Luiz or Pepe, and even though those guys have done well in patches, I think you could argue with whether they were sensible decisions. But that's the job of Arteta, and actually I think he'll do it. I don't think that the elation of Wembley will cloud his judgment at all. I had a really interesting conversation with someone not too long ago about Arsene Wenger, someone who'd worked with Arsene a lot. And they said with Arsene, he's such a fundamentally optimistic person that at times you had to protect him against his optimism. So, sometimes he would say, oh yeah, we can sell that player, or we don't need to buy anybody because I believe that, Maitland-Niles is going to be the new Vieira, or I believe that Senderos is going to come good, or, Benicofobia is going to seize the mantle. I think that Arteta is more realistic in his assessments, and I think that he will be pretty ruthless, and it might feel brutal in some respects in the light of the sort of elation of the cup final. But I think he knows, the league form is the truest indicator really of a team's consistency and ability. And it still needs addressing. Okay, one final one before we go, because this is nearly a 2-hour podcast at this point, and I know people are like tapping their watches going, come on, finish recording. Sure. From the Discord, Simon Thomas King says, Aubameyang dropping the cup, Giroud's injury, Anthony Taylor conspiracy, the salty Chelsea tears, Arsenal winning the cup has set Spud's qualification to Europe back 3 games. What made you laugh the most? I've got to come back, to Giroud's injury for me. I mean, the screams, they'll live on. They're still reverberating around that big empty Wembley, I think. For me, yeah. I mean, look, the sending off was really funny. I thought Lampard looking sad was really, really funny. I thoroughly enjoyed Frank Lampard losing the FA Cup final. The Anthony Taylor thing I'm a little bit more circumspect to laugh at, because I feel like inevitably that will come back to bite us in the arse because of Anthony Taylor. Aubameyang dropping the cup was really funny. There's an amazing picture, isn't there, where somebody's captured the moment. I think I retweeted it, and somebody said it's like a Renaissance picture. Everyone is just like all these faces when he drops
the cup, but that was very funny. But to me, the funniest moment of all was the Olivier Giroud incident, and the toppling to the ground like a once mighty oak falling to the forest floor and then getting his head pissed on by a badger. That's what it felt like to me. But James, can I say one thing to you?
Yes.
Congratulations on getting through what has been the longest Arsenal season of our lifetimes.
Oh, man.
And thank you for being a part of it here, and being on the podcast and helping me and the listeners make sense of, or try to make sense of, or at least come to terms with some of the stuff that we've gone through. It's been a long season, a difficult one, but I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting it with you, and I'm so happy for everybody, for all the Arsenal fans, for all of our listeners, but for you as well, that we can end this on such a positive note. So thank you.
Thanks, man. Well, likewise, and I'm sure the listeners would want me to thank you for everything Arseblog has done. Particularly, I think, during that lockdown period, it was a pretty bleak time for a lot of reasons. And, we kept going, kept putting stuff out. And I think that was really massively appreciated. I know I appreciated it, listening to the stuff that I wasn't on. And shout out to everyone who makes Arsenal content, really, because I think it helped sort of keep people going. And to have this light at the end of the tunnel and this trophy is enormously satisfying. I mean, it's been a really frenetic, crazy period, and it's not a big break until it's back. But there's a lot to be excited about, as Josh Kroenke might say.
Yes. Well, look, I'm a little bit emotional there now because of that. So, look, thanks again. And to all of you listening, to those of you who subscribe to the podcast, wherever you listen, whatever app you use, if you're one of our Patreon members, thank you so much indeed for your support. It really has helped us to keep things going. And for everybody, what a way to end what has been an absolutely bizarre, surreal season, to have such an incredible high right at the end of it. I think we all deserve it. So whatever you've done, whatever you're doing, enjoy this. Hope you've enjoyed this show. We will keep going as we do throughout the off season until things get going again, with podcasts, with articles, with blogs and news and everything else. So until the next one, thank you so much again. And Arsenal are the FA Cup winners of all time, James. We just win the cup. It's what we do. I don't know what else to say. We'll catch you on the next one. Go on.
Here's to the 14th.
Here's to
That's
the 15th.
What you can say. Well, and the 15th. And the 16th. We'll be here.
We'll be here. And you know what? I want to know what love is.
Bye-bye.